I may have dug up a little bit, asked some AJ some questions about you, and he just basically told me that you grew up in basically a drag racing family. Is that correct? Like just a racing family or
Yeah,
cars?
yeah. My dad's always had hot rods, and he had a repair shop that specialized in building transmissions. Did a bunch of transmissions for all like the local racing guys and whatnot. And he always had a race car. He never really drove it though. One of the guys that worked for him drove it when I was a kid, but then it was like that guy's motor, my dad's car kind of thing, and it that guy ended up leaving to start his own shop, and then the car sat for a couple of years. My dad saw that I had interest in racing. He was like, well, if you build a motor, you can go racing. So 13, 14 years old, built a motor to put in it, and been racing ever since.
So, man, that's awesome. So like, and then did you like? I don't really know. So like, is there like a junior thing? Like I know there's like junior dragsters, but is there like a juniors for like guys? Like I know it was a Nova, obviously, but like
Yeah, there's like
16U or something.
young going into racing. You can start in juniors, but I went right to the door car at 14. You're supposed to be 15, but I started at 14.
Okay.
And I went right into the door car thing and bracket raced at first and did some heads up racing to follow that. But it's like the junior stuff, you can start it at 5 years old and race it till you're 18. But it's like a different style of racing. It's really good for kids to start there because it gives them a lot of seat time. It gives them the understanding and the fundamentals of drag racing young. But I already was around it my whole life. I already like knew all of this stuff you really kind of learn in junior racing. So
Yeah.
I drove a junior dragster like on the street in the neighborhood a couple times and like really didn't do anything for me. So I went right to the door car.
So like I'm really not too familiar, but like a junior dragster, like what are like the fastest ones go? Like if you're like a
They
like
start out going 1290s in the eighth,
okay.
and then they race them depending on how many years in age you are. You can race all up to 790, and then they do like a dial your own style racing. But the
Yeah.
fastest ones they call them Outlaw 330, where they only run them the 330 mark, and they're pretty much anything goes. So like
Okay.
if they ran those outlaw cars to the eighth mile, they'd go probably like 580s, 590s in the
That's
eighth
pretty
at like
fast.
110. Yeah, it's super fast for a half scale car.
Yeah, especially like a 12-year-old doing 580 in an eighth mile.
Yeah, but they
Pretty
don't
quick.
like they're not allowed to go that fast for like NHRA ruling purposes and
Yeah.
stuff. So with the outlaw cars, they only run them to half track.
So how old were you when you got your? Because you have your NHRA license, correct?
Yeah, I got them when I was 15.
Okay. Do
Yeah.
you obviously you don't have to have your actual driver's license before you do that, or is it?
No, you don't have to. It's like a back then they like made you do like a cockpit test and then you have to go to the track and make 6 passes and like different increments and have time slips to turn in and you have to have like a track official and 2 other licensed drivers sign off on it, pretty much like stating like they feel you know what you're doing and know where you're at on the track kind of deal.
Yeah. So like for me, like my dad, my parents worked in bowling alleys, and like I grew up in a bowling alley my whole life. So like you said, your dad was in the mechanic shop. Did your dad like hang out at the drag strip like on the weekends a lot? And like you're just like
I
this is
mean, we
something.
would race like yeah, we'd go there. We'd be racing almost every weekend, every other at
Yeah.
least. And if we weren't there racing, we were there helping one of our buddies that had cars, kind of deal.
And so I mean, have you ever like got like the idea of maybe like trying to like get into the NHRA and like race like big cars and stuff? Like
It takes a lot of money to do it if you're not like scouted from them or carried over with like big sponsors to cover the nut. But
okay.
I mean, it's if you wanted to just buy a seat in like a NHRA car, you got to be licensed for it first. You got to like prove you can do it and like top alcohol style stuff before you go to top fuel. And then once you can do that, you can buy your way in, but it's stupid money, like over $100,000 kind of money.
So like when you like got out of high school and stuff, did you just go work for your dad's shop or did you start your own shop? Like how'd you
No,
go?
I would work for him here, like on and off in between jobs. I mean, a good bit of my childhood and younger adulthood, I worked for him, but I worked at other shops in the industry. But I didn't just do like general like mechanics work. I built custom cars. Worked counter jobs selling, hot rod parts at speed shops and stuff like that. I kind of got my feet wet in every aspect of like the automotive industry to see which one I liked the most.
Okay.
And definitely like building race cars or building custom cars is kind of where my heart was at with it. You know, it's cleaner work. You know, it's
Yeah.
tidier stuff, and it's more enjoyable than fixing a Hyundai Sonata with 200,000 miles on it.
With a bumper hanging off, and they're like, I don't
Yeah,
understand why he ain't working.
smells like Taco Bell inside it and stuff.
So obviously that leads into like you. Like, how did you go about like meeting Garrett, like Cletus?
I ran into him at a couple of his events before I started working for him and helped him out with a few things here and there at the track. And then he had like put out a Facebook post looking for like a part-time guy to come like finish up a job. And I reached out to him, was like, hey, I can do it. And we had mutual friends that were running a shop that he would use a lot for a lot of his labor. And he reached out to them and asked them about me, and he's like, "Yeah, go ahead. That's a good kid to have on your team, kind of deal." So started out as a part time gig, and after day one, it turned into a full time job. That was 6 7 years ago now, and about 50 cars built.
So I mean, obviously, I mean that's probably one of the best decisions you've made is getting to going to work for him. Correct? I mean,
Yeah, because the biggest stress in the automotive industry is working for like a client base, customers having to please, if you're building 10 cars a year, that's 10 different people you're trying to please. Well, instead of having that, I have one guy I got to work for and build cars for. So it takes the stress of having customers out of the equation. On
right.
top of that, with the perks of, we get to build stuff to break it, to fix it, to do it all again kind of deal. And the traveling, the racing, and half the time you don't get paid to go racing, which is huge. It's not many people in the racing industry can say that they're actually being paid while at the racetrack.
Which would be pretty. I mean, AJ brags about that all the time. Like he goes to the races and he says, "Like I'm getting paid to be here," and I'm just like, I hate you.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's his living, and that's your living, and like, so like, would you? I mean, obviously, this is probably your dream job, right? You get to build 5,000 horsepower hot rods, work on them all day, hang out with your buddies, and all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the only thing that can get better is, if money was endless and you're doing it for yourself, it's like
Yeah,
it's the next best thing, you get to do it with somebody else's money and go home every day.
yeah, without the stress of like keeping the shop lights on and all that
Yeah.
stuff. What is the best part of going to the drag strip for you? Like when you're at the track, like for me, like when I go, obviously like race and stuff, I just love being there with my friends. Like being the person you are now and like it actually being your job, do you think it's kind of lost that or do you still have the love for it like you did when you were 14?
Oh, I mean, it'll never fade. I mean, it's pretty much in my blood to do it. Like race, I'll never not race. My
Yeah.
kids will race below me, but I'll never not, enjoy going to the track. I mean, just like you're saying, going racing and with your buddies and all that stuff. Like that's how the drag strip is. Everyone's family the second you roll in the gate.
Yeah.
And then you get both sides of it. You get good company of good people surrounding you. You get to enjoy wrenching and racing a hot rod. Then the competitive edge of actually racing while there. Like it just fills so many bubbles up on the things you enjoy doing that I'll never not do it.
So like, and then my next question is like, obviously like I'm not trying to kiss your ass or anything like that, but like nowadays is it different for you like when you go out in public and stuff because like people, I mean honestly you see all these kids and stuff, they look up to you and like as a role model, as somebody that they want to become when they get older. So like has that changed at all for you or do you still like because like I watched Sam when he was on Bo Getty's podcast. He's like basically Cletus told you guys like, look, people are always going to be watching you and they're going to judge you off that one time you're there. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are not going to get a second point of view of you. Like, they're going to go up to you and they're be like, oh, he's an asshole. But like,
I mean, the thing is like I try to be as pure as I am 110% of the time because of the fact that if you're putting on the front, whether it's for a video or for one crowd in person, and it's, you're not being yourself, the second you are yourself, people be like, well, who is he? Is he this asshole or is he this person that we see on those videos? So who you see on the videos and who you get in person, I'm the same wherever I go. I mean, it's a lot easier to just wake up, put on your pants the same way every day and be the person you are versus trying to put on, a fake front. So, I mean, there is like some surreal moments when you get recognized by crowds of people in different spots, but it's not no different for me facing it because it's not like I'm pretending to be something I'm not. You know, I'm the
Yeah.
same person no matter the day.
So what did you say is your favorite drag race event of the year?
Well, it depends on, you know, I race so much throughout the year, it's hard to really like pick a favorite. I'm a big like I like certain venues over other venues for like races, but it depends on what style racing. Like the most competitive racing, I'd have to say is like anytime I'm out like class racing is super fun because it's super competitive. But probably the most enjoyable form of racing we do is definitely the drag and drives to an
Yeah.
extent. Like if you can keep your car, like I always tell everyone that like sees the drag and drive stuff and they're like, oh, that's so cool. If I had a 13-second car that had AC, I would do every drag and drive I could. Because just the experience of doing it is it's you get to hang out with your buddies for 5 days, driving across a country or two, and you know, you get to take and race, you know, 5 different tracks over those 5 days, you know, and crossing state lines and driving through mountains. And it's just one of those things where like you don't get that in any other form of racing, you know.
No.
And on top of that, depending on what class you're in those drag and drives, it is just as competitive as going to the racetrack for a heads up event.
I was gonna say because you guys won the 850 class with last year, the year before.
I runnered up it last sick week with a broken crankshaft. Like day two, I started in Orlando and Ruby after putting it together and running it twice down the drag strip, went 85000, like a perfect time. Day two, it broke the crank at Bradenton, and I finished the entire week with the broken crankshaft and still took second place. But I've won a few. I've had a few like on race weeks, a few runner ups and a few wins with Ruby in that 850 class. But it is like by far the, in my opinion, the most competitive class because that 850 barrier, it's like so easy for people to detune a car to run that 850 that they don't break. So it's like you're racing guys that are going dead on every track everywhere you go. Where like the unlimited class stuff in the drag and drive is insane what they're doing, but they're running those cars so hard. It's mainly a fight to just not run out of spare parts because those guys are always working on their cars.
And like I will say, like running an 850 is not easy. So like, I mean, we watch the channel, we watch all these guys, and like it runs 850, but like your normal Joe to get to an 850, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, like I remember growing up, like the fastest guy in my hometown was like a 10-second car, and like everybody knew who Ranjan was. Like he had a Malibu, and like he sprayed nitrous, and basically, but like I want to say he was probably a 9-second car, and like but like now it's like 850 and people are like, oh, 850, when's he going to get in the sevens? I don't think people understand how hard 850 is.
Yeah, I mean it takes a lot. I mean it takes 1,300 horsepower in a 3,200 pound car
Yeah,
that
and it's not
works to do
bolt-ons.
it.
Like you're going to have a semi-built motor, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. You're gonna have to. I mean, we've done it with as simple as like a rod piston motor with like a stock block, stock crank stuff, but still, I mean, it takes good heads, a custom grind camshaft, all the right parts, and then a chassis that works and can handle it. Because you can't just buy the pieces, put it in a car, and think it's going to go to the track going 850. You got to do everything to the car to get it there. Build rear end, a roll cage, stiffen it up,
Yeah.
cut weight out of it where you can, race and see, stuff like that. Like it takes a lot to get it there. There's cars now you can buy these days and do bolt-ons and basic builds and be, high 8 second, low 9 second cars, but people don't understand like there's a big jump in those half second increments. To go from a 9.0 to an 850 can take you another 30 grand when building a race car. It's people
I
don't
think
really like
that's
see that often until you do it.
and like 30 grand is, I mean, that's a lot of people's half their salary, some people's
Yeah.
whole salary. So building that, like that would take years for some people to do, and by the time they would build that car in years, 850 is
It's
just,
it's dated, yeah.
yeah, those parts aren't going to be like you basically, they're going to be, no one's going to want them anymore. And the next big thing will be there. It's kind of like RC. Like if you take 6 months off, by the time you come back, you're going to be your car, you're going to have to update your car because every year, new chassis, new motors, new ESCs are coming out, new
Yeah.
tunes, new preps,
New
everything like that.
aftermarket supporting parts and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, what would you say your favorite venue is? Like your favorite track?
So I've raced at a lot of racetracks, and Probably, you know, Bradenton's my home track, and it's by far one of my favorite because of the racing surface we get, no matter the time of the year. But as far as like hometown feel venues, I gotta say, Beach Bend Raceway up in Kentucky. It has an amusement park in the parking lot. Like it's on a guy's
What?
property. His house, like the guy who owns the property and the track, his house is on property. There's an amusement park with water slides and a roller coaster. Like their venue, like their slogans, like it's something like ride a ride, slide a slide, pet a goat, because there's like a petting zoo inside of it and stuff. Like it's just like a home, like it is the most home track feeling vibe of a racetrack you can get. And it's like you race inside of covered bleachers, like the bleachers are covered for like the first eighth mile almost of the drag strip. So like you're almost like in a tunnel kind of feel going down the
Dude,
track.
that's
It's just
awesome.
like a super cool vibe track. And I haven't really done any good there racing, but I always go. LS Fest is there every year.
I was like, is that where LS Fest is? Like, I know
Yeah,
that.
and I go just for the fact of to show the support that Holly, Holly supports me, so I like to go to show them the support back, but
Yeah.
also that the vibe of that track is just next level. It's definitely up there, if not the top three for sure.
Yeah, go check it out some more of this.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's going to like even I tell a lot of people all the time. I get a common question I get asked is a lot is how do I get into racing or how do I figure out about drag racing. I like to tell everyone the same thing, like find your local tracks, find their websites or their Facebook pages, see when their like open test and two nights are, and just go to one. Usually it's 10 or $20 to get in the gate to spectate. Some of them even do like a $20 entry and it gives you a tech card if you wanted to even race whatever car you had down the track. But at those testing tunes, you'll see everything from, a minivan or a Tesla to a full blown race car racing all in one night. And it gives you a good feel of like sit in the bleachers, you can get a hot dog or a hamburger and a Coke, sit there and just watch, 100 different cars go down the track in one night, and you kind of see like, oh, anybody can do this, or and then you get to watch all kinds of different cars do it. And you're like, man, this is pretty neat, and it's a good way to get people like involved in the sport, and then it
Yeah.
helps those local tracks with supporting them because the biggest thing is like the last 3 years we've had more racetracks around the country closed down because of lack of support almost. It's like these people got a big nut to pay keeping the lights on at these places, and you don't realize it, but that $20 you spend to get in the gate and the 15 you spend at concession stands helps them a lot, as on the spectator
Oh
side of
yeah.
things. Because as racers, we put on the show, but if there's no one to enjoy the show, there's no money being made for the track. Because we pay tech card entry and all that stuff, but that just covers the payout for the class. Sometimes if we don't get a car count and there's a guaranteed payout, the racetrack loses money to make the payout. So it's like without spectators at a racetrack, racetracks don't have the means to survive. So I always try to tell people just like find your local tracks and go. You'll be surprised what you see on a Thursday night at a racetrack, or a lot of tracks do like run day Sundays too, or Saturday night deals. And it's like if you got nothing to do, go with a couple of buddies and just go check it out. Next thing you know, you might want to take your pickup truck or your Tesla down the racetrack, and they let that happen at their testing tune. So it's a
Yeah. I'm
it's a neat thing to do.
I'm 15 minutes from National Trails.
Yeah,
National Trails, like right here in Ohio. And then yeah, that's I've always wanted to go over there, but I'll look it up and I might go up like this summer. I'll go over and check out like a test and tune one night, just to go and see. I've never done it. I've always wanted to, and it's just something I never because like they have Mopar Nationals and everything there. So
yeah,
I
and
might.
a lot of the hometown tracks like that too. It's like people think like, oh, I'm going to be stuck in the bleachers, but it's not like that. A lot of these tracks are like open pits where if you don't want to sit there and watch anymore, you can walk around the pits, and 90% of the people there racing are friendly. And, if you can ask any of them any question, they'll answer it. It's very rare you ever stumble across somebody at the racetrack that's in a bad mood or or doesn't want to talk to somebody, so it's like one of those things. It's like, I encourage everyone to go if they got the time and the means to do it.
you know,
I always tell a lot of people too, it's like in racing, you got to be just as lucky as you are good, you
yeah,
know. And the better you are as a person, I feel the better you're going to be as as your race program's going to work. You're open minded, open headed to everything, and I feel like when you're that way, the luck always seems to fall your way over the other way, kind of deal. So that's where
yeah.
I always always try to stay open minded about everything and not let the the losses come, heavy. I let them blow out pretty quick.